All right, so let's talk about storefront. And really, I guess maybe the first topic I want to sort of discuss is the number one, the idea or the difference between storefront and curtain wall, right, in the real world. Because in Revit here, if we go under wall and we go to architectural wall, and under your project properties dialog box, you come down here. We have curtain wall, exterior glazing, and storefront. Oh, they've added one. And really, they don't function very differently from one another, right? The idea between Paul, have you announced to everybody about this? Mr. Mind to teach?
Yes, that's nice. I love that.
Okay.
It's great.
Who are the architecture students in here?
Anyone?
Where's
Okay, well, I'll be there.
the transfer seminar?
27th. You need to be there. Oh, okay.
I told you all too, Pachakacha is on the 30th.
What day is that one?
Pachakacha?
Yeah.
It's Friday the 30th. Yeah.
Oh.
There's a Facebook page for Pachakacha. What?
What are the hours?
The doors open at 7, presentations start at 8.
Same like last time.
Yeah, it's at the State Room on State Street and like 6 South and State. You have to be 21 and older to get in. There's a bar. Good.
There's a bar there.
We're gonna keep the riffraff out. The young riffraff. I like that answer.
And it's going on Facebook and get their tickets.
Yeah, you can get the tickets on the Facebook page. You can search for it, Women in Architecture. This one's we're sponsoring Women in Architecture this time. All right, so we have storefront, right? I'm just gonna draw we'll draw an elevation of the building. Elevation section-ish. Like somewhat like this. This is kind of one of those like strip mallish things you see all over the place, right? Where this might be like brick, right? We've got brick here. And you have those windows that somewhat look like this, right? And they have a mullion down here. They have a mullion maybe up here. Kind of looks like this, right? Somewhat like that. Okay. We're going to say this is storefront. Okay. And let me show you a picture of what I'm actually drawing because it's not that great on the screen. Happy Pi Day. Right, when you see it immediately, you know what it is, right? So this is storefront, typical storefront type stuff. Extruded aluminum frames. Oh, you guys know that stuff. This stuff. Yes, anyway. Okay, so that's what storefront looks like. And the idea behind storefront is that the idea behind storefront is that you have this opening. So you have an opening like in the brick, right? And the opening has structure built in above it, a header, right? That supports the load that's coming down on it here. And so the opening is essentially supported by the header, and so when they put the storefront in, it's not structural, right? So the storefront just goes in, and it's a glazing system that you can see through, but it's not by any means kind of interacting with the structure at all, okay? So that's the idea of storefront. And the idea behind curtain wall, let me show you what curtain wall, let's see. You're going to see more something like this, right? Where instead of having kind of these punched openings that are self-supporting that have glass inserted into them, I'm going to draw a little section here of a building. So if you have a floor that looks like that, and you have another floor that looks like this, I'm looking at it from a cut sectional view, and then the ground plane is down here. The way that storefront usually works, and I'm just going to make a weird little connection here, but the way that a curtain wall works is that you have like a system that somewhat can be hung off of the structure in some way or another, right? Something like that maybe. So you have these structural plates, and the curtain wall is somehow connected to the structure of the building, and it's hung off the structure, right? So it's not necessarily it is self-supporting, but it's not like storefront where it's in a structural opening, it's hanging off the structure. Okay, and usually this is meant to like span multiple stories of glass, right? So like this image here, you see like these really big multiple stories of glass, okay? To hide these areas, you'll have a little piece called a spandrel piece of glass where it's not visible, it's not vision glazing. So you can't see through it, so you hide the connection. And then if you're a little person standing down here, you can kind of look up into the building, okay? So that's the difference between storefront and curtain wall in the real world. And what's that? No, I've had this conversation a lot, and I guess it's evolved a little bit over the years, but when we first started using Revit, nobody really understood why they had two different types in Revit, honestly, because they function so closely, right? The main difference that we somewhat could gather was that when you created storefront, right? I create my storefront. And when I look at my storefront, it has the glazing panel and it has a mullion system, right? And the other curtain wall, okay? When curtain wall is formed, it doesn't form with a mullion system around it, right? But really, you can add, oh, my little trick didn't work. Usually, if you move it, it will form mullions. But you can add mullions to it, right? So I can come in here and I can click and I can add mullions to it. So I guess maybe it's a little somewhat more customizable, right? So storefront will generate and it creates a system of mullions vertically and horizontally with maximum spacing. So this system is defined to say, well, we want a mullion every maximum 5 feet, right? So if you're going 11 feet, you'll have 3 sets of mullions, right? 5, 10, and then a little space, you know, where you have the 11 foot. And again, the curtain wall doesn't have that. So inherently, maybe it's a little bit more user-friendly. And I guess now that I kind of think about it, this is kind of nice because it can span multiple levels without having the mullion system kind of interfering with its structure.
Like custom glass and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
These are all standard, so
Yeah.
that's why probably.
It is really, yeah, you're right, it is expensive. And so that's what you're going to see the difference between the two, right? We're going to talk about these two, okay? So we sort of made a universal decision that we were just going to, you know, when I was working in an office, that we were just going to use storefront, right? And if we needed to alter it, we needed to alter it, but it seemed like a better system. Or we just decided. I'm not saying it's better, but it came in more consistent with mullion spacing. And when you're doing a project, you're always worried, I guess, except for that building. What is the building downtown that has those gigantic sheets of glass?
The theater.
The theater.
Yes, my company did that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I did all of those, yeah.
Super expensive, right?
Well, one glass had like a crack, like you don't even see it. You see it if you climb up,
Uh-huh.
and it's like, I don't know, $70,000 for that one piece.
Oh my gosh. We drive by that and we're
We
like,
did all the cladding, we didn't do the glass.
okay. It's expensive. It's so expensive though. But to get big pieces of glass like that, it's outrageous, you know? Otherwise you're doing storefront and you're limited to like a 5 by 10 piece of glass so that, you know, it's reasonable. Anyway, so we decided that maybe using storefront was a good system because we can set the spacing of the mullions to indicate, hey, we want to keep within this parameter of how big our glazing needs to be before it gets expensive. Okay, so let's talk about these two systems. More commercial application. This is a means and methods kind of issue. I'll talk about storefront maybe if we have time at the end again with regards to residential projects. Anyway, so somebody remind me hopefully about that. But let's talk about storefront, okay? We have a lot of different pieces to storefront. Storefront is a wall. Let me just kind of start out with that, okay? And before I actually get into it, let me draw a wall over here next to it. A solid wall. I'm going to let's draw a big, thick wall. Okay. Here we have that. Just look like that. Okay, there we go. So we have our regular architectural walls, right? And they are solid, they're opaque, you can't see through them, they have structure associated with them. And then we have our curtain wall and we have our storefront, which we've talked about. But what you don't know is these are also considered walls. They're not considered a window type in Revit, okay? So you don't just go into the family editor and load them and insert them like a regular window. You draw them like a wall, okay? But they have special parameters associated with them where when you draw these, they are a wall system and they do interact with walls like windows, but they have what is called, I'm forgetting the word now. They embed themselves in walls. So storefront is a wall system, you know, that's vision glazing, but it embeds itself into a solid wall, right? So when we first started this semester, you remember how a lot of you, when you were drawing your floor plans for your project, you left a little gap for the doors to go in, right? Thinking, I'm going to leave a gap for the door, I'm going to put the door in, and then I'm going to, you know, continue the wall. This is the same kind of system where you don't leave a gap for the storefront, you draw the wall, and then when you draw the storefront, you draw it over the top of the wall and it embeds itself or hosts itself into the wall and makes a cut opening, okay? It's a little bit counterintuitive to draw that way, but the system works. So when I'm drawing storefront, okay, I go into the wall, it's gonna be a long night, folks. The wall command, Aaron's rubbing his eyes. Help me. We go into the wall command. I'm gonna go down to storefront here. And I'm over here in my floor plan view, right? But this is my solid wall that's back here. I'm gonna click over the top of it, click, okay. Ooh, we missed the magic, because it was the other end. Right? But the storefront wall embedded itself and cut an opening in the wall. Okay? I can grab that storefront wall. Oh. Right? And what's nice about it is that its boundary recognizes height restrictions and base restrictions so that, you know, it looks the way it should, essentially. Okay? So this wall, let me just grab it. Oop, there we go. If we look over here in our properties dialog box, this functions just like any normal wall. So it has a base constraint, it has a base offset, right? I could give this a 6-inch base offset and it bumps up 6 inches, right? I have a top constraint. Let's maybe make this level 2. There we go. And I have a top offset. Maybe we offset it 1 foot, enter, right? Oop, maybe. There we go. Okay, so it functions just like a wall. And it functions just like a wall too. We have these grips, right? So I click here and you notice I have a grip here and I have a grip at the end to make it longer, shorter, taller, give me a, you know, base offset. Oop. There we go. Okay. So when we're drawing our walls, number one, you have to have an existing opaque wall that you then draw your storefront wall over the top of, and it will embed itself into that wall. Opaque? Yes. Did I say opaque? Okay. Opaque. You know, like pantyhose. Opaque, right? Stockings, I guess I should say. I know. I think of Layla now when I think of pantyhose. All right. Now I say that, right? So if I'm drawing storefront and I want it to be within a wall system, that's what I would do. But I can also just draw storefront by itself. So it is different from doors and windows in that it doesn't have to be hosted in a wall, right? It can stand by itself. So if I wanted to draw just a storefront wall, I'm going to come up here to wall, architectural, storefront, click, click, and obviously just like I did back here, I can create a self-standing storefront piece here, right? Although I mean, I don't know why you would want to have a piece of storefront just kind of hanging out, right? Anyway, but you can, if you'd like, you can do that. Okay. there's a lot of pieces to storefront and a curtain wall, okay? And the difficulty in storefront is not drawing it, right? It actually draws fairly easily. It's in manipulating it and changing it. There's a lot, or selecting it, there's a lot to it, okay? So we're going to talk about that in a second. But before I do that, I just want to show you a couple of settings in the assembly of the storefront. I've selected my storefront window there, okay? I have a base constraint, I have a base offset, top constraint, and unconnected height here. If I hit edit type, like I want to edit the wall type, right? I'm bumped into the type properties dialog box here. And instead of having an area where it says structure, right, where I would go into a wall system and edit the assembly of the wall, I just have a bunch of options. And I have options about what type of curtain panel, right? What type of glazing panel is there? Is it going to be just the glazed system, or is it going to be an empty panel? Let me, hopefully this will kind of update as I, okay, you see how that turned to an empty panel, right? That's what an empty panel looks like. Is it going to be exterior glazing? See how that changed again, right? But the glazing is called the panel. This area right here in the storefront is the panel, okay? We have, I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I want to show you what that is, but not just yet. We have the layout of the grid. So these pieces, those are called the mullion system. The mullion is the frame, right? And it will be on the outer edge, it will be vertical, it will be horizontal, right? And in general, you're kind of looking for like a 5 foot by 10 foot maximum spacing either direction, okay? But the vertical grid can be laid out. So you have options on the layout. Do we want it maximum spaced? Do we want it a fixed distance, meaning instead of 5 feet maximum, you automatically generate it? Do we want it at every 2 feet? So you have a gridded piece at every 2 feet, okay? Or none, we can choose to have none. You can choose the spacing, 5 foot, or maybe we can make this 6 foot and hit apply, and those somewhat space out. Let's make it 8 foot. There you go. Oop, got a little something happening there. We'll go back to 6 foot for now. There we go. And then we have the horizontal grid, so we can choose the spacing on the vertical grid and on the horizontal grid, okay? We can also choose what kind of mullions we want. So do we want a rectangular mullion? Do we want a round mullion, right? Do we want an interior type mullion? And it's going to be for vertical and for horizontal. Let me just cancel this or hit OK. I want to zoom into these mullions, right? The mullion is this frame, and you can see if I click on it, it's its own piece, okay? And it's rectangular, okay? And if I hit edit type, well, that's not what I wanted to do. Hold on. Ooh, okay. I could change this. So I could change this to circular. And I want to change all of them to circular, 2.5. Circular, 2.5. Apply. Right? And it changes that profile to circular. So we could have circular mullions, right? So it's somewhat customizable. Although storefront, I would say, out of a lot of the different things in Revit that you can customize, it's slightly difficult to customize and get to work. Storefront's extremely finicky to work with. It's a pretty powerful tool, but it's extremely finicky. Let's just change these back to whatever they were, 2.5 by 5. Here we go, 2.5 by 5, 2.5 by 5. Here we go. And then of course we can change our rectangular, the vertical or the horizontal mullion. Okay, so we have all these pieces. We have the panel, we have the mullion, okay, and then we have something else. Let me see what view this is in. Okay, I'm gonna go to a shaded view. I'm going to move this. Actually, I'm going to go back to my other view. Hold on. Let me move these pieces away from one another. Boy. Okay, so those are right next to each other now. There we go. So there's our storefront. Here's our storefront embedded into a wall. Okay, so if I look at this system, I'm going to go to a shaded view. I have the mullion, right? And I have the panel. This is the panel. You can change the panel out to be other things. It can be a solid panel, it can be the glass, the transparent, and you could also change it out to things like doors, right? So if you wanted a storefront door, then you could add a door to this panel and it would turn into a door. Now, I want to show you like when I'm selecting my storefront. Selection is really key in a storefront system, and it's going to really help you place it and alter it, okay? So if I hover over my storefront system like this, and I don't click, if I hover like that, you see that those 3 blue dashed lines that occur all the way around it, okay? If I hover around it like that and I click, that will allow me to select the entire storefront piece, okay? And so if I want to move it or rotate it or alter it or mirror it, I'm going to have to grab it in its entirety, and that's how you do that. That's not always easy, okay? Let me just say that. In this case, you were noticing me, I was trying to select it, but sometimes you get the mullion, sometimes you get the panel, and sometimes you get the wall, and then if you're very lucky, you get the whole system, right? Okay. So I have selection of the entire system. I then have selection of the panel. So if I zoom in here and I tab, there's the mullion, tab, there's the center of the mullion, tab, there's the panel. And you see in the bottom left-hand corner it says curtain panel right there. If I click, I can select that panel, okay? Okay, so I tab, nope, tab, click, there's my panel. So here's my whole storefront system. Tab, there's my panel, okay? I can't, I got it the first time there, right? There's my mullion. But the issue with mullions is that they are always pinned, right? So I can't change or move them very easily because they're always pinned. So if I tab, click, there's my mullion, and I want to change that mullion, I'd have to unpin it first and then I could change it or alter it, okay? So in addition to all those things, this outer selection, the panel selection, the mullion selection, we also have a curtain grid that is running across this storefront, all right? And what that means is that if I go to an elevation view and I tab, okay, I can't quite get it there. Come on, I might only be able to get it in plan view. Okay, tab. There it is. Okay. Do you see that line down the middle, running down the middle of that mullion? Click. That is a curtain grid. Okay. And let's see if I can get it to highlight over here. There it is, right there. Okay. And you'll see it there. Oh, it's that right there. Be very careful on a special day of the week to hopefully capture the elusive storefront. Where is it? It's making me angry. There we go. Okay. And that's what it looks like. So we have the panel, we have the mullion, we have the outer boundary, we have, I said the mullion, we have the curtain grid. Okay. Those are all things that you are able to select within this wall system, right? And they're all things that you are able to change. Okay. Certain things only allow you to do other certain things. For example, this curtain grid right here, if I click on it and I unpin it, problem number 1, almost everything in a storefront system like this is pinned. So you finally get it selected, then it's pinned, right? So make sure that I click and I unpin it. MV move, click, okay? That will allow me to move that mullion, right? Which is important because if I just hover in here and I tab, click on the mullion, MV, it doesn't work, right? I think actually, let me see, I think if I can, don't forget to unpin. I think if I grab all 3 of them, I can, nope. Right? I grabbed those mullions, they were all unpinned, but they wouldn't move, right? Because the mullions are connected to the curtain grid. That's how they define themselves. So really, in actuality, when you're designing this curtain wall system and you're drawing it out, the storefront is generating as a wall, and the wall has these curtain grids that occur at every certain distance, whatever you define, 5 feet maximum or whatever. And then the wall system itself assigns a mullion to each of those curtain grids, vertically and horizontally, okay? And then it fills in a panel. So you have the whole system, the curtain grid, the mullion, and then the panel that goes in, right? So we have a lot of working parts here. So what's happening when you think, oh, I want to just move that over because I want to put a door here, do something like that, it's just not as easy as that. And it's not very easy to select either, right? So, yeah. Oh, wait, the whole thing? You mean the curtain grid? Yeah.
Even in the elevation.
The curtain grid, you mean? If you're lucky, you can select the curtain grid here. Are you able to do it on yours? Yeah, you can. Oh, grab this and just click on it and drag it. If you're lucky. Sometimes you can. I can't on mine. Actually,
The whole thing has to be visible.
no. It might be because I have a maximum spacing, maybe. I wonder if maybe if I move one of these other ones, it might work. No, mine's stuck. Yeah.
It's not coming to the bottom one?
Is it connected to the bottom one? These are all separate pieces.
Oh.
Yeah. It's tricky. You guys look at the hang of it, but it's really tricky, right? If you haven't kind of gathered that, it's tricky, right? So if you're trying to move it or rotate it or alter it or mirror it or do anything to it, it's really about selection. It's really how you select it as to whether or not it's going to allow you to do something, really. So when I'm placing my curtain or my storefront, and I just stick to storefront, I don't usually put curtain wall in because I don't want to have to define my mullions, right? So when I'm installing curtain wall, I'm actually pretty careful about how I put it in there. I usually will draw some reference planes first, and I'll draw from one reference plane to another to get it in the right place, right? So if I have to draw a window in this wall, like you'll all have to do in your wireless switch, right? I'm a level 1. I will usually go in and do RP, reference plane, where I know it needs to go. Oh, terrible reference plane. I will copy it, CO, maybe 10 foot, and then I'll draw my storefront in there. So I'll go up to wall, architecture, wall, and I will define it. So from level 1, I want this to go, I want it unconnected, and I want it to be 3 feet tall. Oh, and it's a window, so maybe we'll give it an 18-inch offset. So then I draw from here. Oh, yeah, okay. I draw from here to there, click, click, escape, escape, and there's my little storefront system. Right, so it's 18 inches off the ground, it's 3 feet tall. If I wanted to change it, right, any of the type settings, right, the wall type setting, I'd have to grab the whole thing. So I can't just click on like that piece and expect the entire system to change, right? I have to find that whole, all those dashed lines, and then I could say maybe make it 4 feet tall.
That's actually just top of window, right? That's not 4 feet of window.
Well, it's going to be the unconnected height of the window. So it's 1'6" off the ground, and then it's 4 foot tall. Yeah, looks really, well, this is a gigantic wall. It's 20 feet tall. Yeah. Okay. All right. So when you're drawing these, you're drawing them just like walls, right? You have a top definition, you have a bottom definition, you have a base and top offset. Great. We know that selection is going to be kind of tricky, right? You guys look like you're having trouble over there, or causing trouble over there. If I had a pen, I'd write your name down.
This is the best behaved corner.
All right. So it's going to be tricky. I think the biggest kind of hurdle in using storefront is just going to be you learning how to select it, right? So for the wireless switch, I'm going to go to downloads, wireless switch right there, right? Oh, not that one. The drawings. Right, if I look at my elevations, hopefully I can get a sense of where let's see what else. I should have reviewed the entire set again. Let's see. I have a window schedule on here. Well, unless I'm just missing it, which I don't know if I am. Let's see. You might be counting blocks. Door schedule, glazing schedule. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's some windows, for example, right? And it says that we have a 3'8" offset to the sill. We have a 5'8" window, right? With a 2" frame all the way around it. And then here are the dimensions for the windows. Okay, so 4'5" and then 1'9". So when you would go to generate this in Revit, you would give the window a base offset of 3'8" from whatever level you were drawing it on, an unconnected height of 5'8", right? And then you go to a floor plan view and you would draw the length of it, whatever those are. Oh, 6'8" added up. Okay. So, I mean, that is an easy way to sort of, the windows are not terrible to draw, right? They make sense. They're like walls, essentially. Okay. Any questions so far? Yep, exactly. Huh. All right, so what happens when you need to have a door in the storefront, right? Or you need to delete one of these mullions or do something like that, right? If you have to alter them a little bit. Let me go to a view here. And let's talk about adding a door. I'm going to grab this wall system, tab, click. We will give this a 0 base offset. There we go. And I want to add a door right here. The way that we're going to add a door into storefront is by using the panel. And we're going to have to load in a door type for this panel and then apply it to the panel. Okay. So if I go to Insert and I go to Load Family, I believe, no, I think it's actually under Doors. If we go to Doors and we have Storefront, oh, there's a double. We'll do both of these. There's a single storefront and there's a double storefront. So I'm going to grab both of those and hit Open. And I just loaded those in. Okay. So to apply those doors to this panel, I'm going to select my panel. And again, you'll get used to this, but it takes a minute. So I found the best way when you're first doing this to kind of capture these is to do it in 3D, right? So go into 3D, hover over, right? This graphic is showing an entire selection of the wall system. This graphic right here, oh, there's the curtain panel. Click. There's my panel. No, I don't like that selection. There we go. That's more what I want to see. There's my panel, right? Okay. The way that we're going to change this is select it, come over here to Properties, drop down, and you see we have the single glass storefront door. Click. Nothing happens. Well, apparently it doesn't look like anything happened, right? If I go to an elevation view, a door appeared. So I do have a door here, even though in 3D view you can't see it, which is very confusing.
Could you put a handle on it?
You can load a door with a handle.
Well, we're doing that.
You're searching Revit City already for a new storefront door. And then if I go to level 1, there is a door shown, right? I can grab that door and I can still change the swing of it, right? There you go. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back to 3D again. The only problem with this door is what? We have a mullion down here kind of in the way, right? So we need to get rid of that mullion. And I can click on it. Let me just say, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm just gonna show you both ways and see what happens. But if I click on the mullion and I uncheck the pin and I hit delete, okay, it worked. So sometimes I can hit delete and it goes away, right? It doesn't always function that way. It's probably going to because, right? Okay, that worked a little bit more how I wanted it to work. So in that case, I was able to very nicely click on the mullion, uncheck it, unpin it, hit delete, right? And the mullion disappeared, right? But what didn't disappear was that curtain, the curtain grid behind it that actually defined where that mullion sat, right? Because again, the way the system works, we have these grids, the curtain grids that define it, and then the mullion is applied to that curtain grid, okay? So I go to my north elevation, and while I do have my mullion deleted, I still have that curtain grid, right? But what's nice now about that is that my curtain grid has kind of been exposed. Okay, and I'm allowed to capture it now. Oop. Nope, I'm still grabbing my panel, so it's, there we go, never mind. I thought I was grabbing the, nope. All right, we're gonna go a different route. Every now and again, if you're lucky, right, I can grab the curtain grid and I can hit delete and it goes away. It's not happening. So we're going to have to come up through in our ribbon, and we're going to have to use some of the curtain grid options to get rid of the curtain grid. This is another one. I've said this on a couple of different moves that we've made here, and I feel like sometimes something is very fundamental. It feels blocky, like it doesn't work very well. And I feel like this, what we're just about to do, doesn't always work very well, right?
Can you just use the selection where it only captures inside the box? Doesn't capture everything?
Nope. It's a good thought though. That might, let's go into 3D. That might work in 3D. Nope. No. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to go up to curtain grid. I click on curtain grid and it says, would you like all segments, one segment, or all except picked? Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Stumper. Okay, that's the problem. I wanted to add or subtract part of the curtain wall grid, but it wasn't allowing me to capture it at all in elevation view. So what was happening when I was looking at it in elevation view is I came up to curtain grid, click, and it says, hey, great, you want to create a curtain grid, right? All segments, one segment, all but picked. So I guess we'll go through this and then I'll show you how to delete them. All segments. You hover over where you want it to go. If you're lucky, it gets all segments, right? Click, click, click. Okay, one segment, which you saw it obviously picking one segment before, right? Click, and it's adding one segment. Click. I'm undoing all those. All except picked. There we go. Okay, that one I don't ever use because it doesn't make sense to me. But what I in actuality wanted to do, right, I wanted to delete one. So I was adding these. By adding them, essentially you're adding kind of a new grid that you can then apply a mullion to. So sometimes you see they're automatically generated, right? Before they just generated automatically, but now I have to click over these and it places a mullion. If I go into 3D, I'm going to tab, 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 click. There's my curtain grid. Add or remove segment, click. I can click, 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 and it removes those segments. It's so finicky, right? It's so finicky. When we did the Tracy Aviary, what?
I don't know about that.
About which part?
Finicky part.
Oh my gosh, it's so finicky. Let's see. Rent. Will it show the building? Maybe not. So I worked on this project for a long time. The guest service and education building over at the aviary, right? And the way that we were able to achieve this panel system, we actually used storefront, right? So we had these steel panels that we drew this design in AutoCAD, and then they cut it, right, and powder coated it. And the panels are actually bent on the sides, and they like essentially sit on hooks that are on that were structure that were bolted or embedded into the CMU block behind it. So they set the panels on there, right? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what you do. And drawing this was a nightmare. It was a complete and utter bloody nightmare. And it took us several iterations to figure it out in Revit, right? This was one of our kind of first-ish projects in Revit at AJC, and the way that we ended up figuring out how to create this panel system was using storefront, actually. And so we created a storefront system, and just like this, right? And we created a custom panel that looked like this. We had 5 or 6 different panels, and we would have the storefront grid on the face of the brick, right? And then we would tab, 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 and we would find the panel, and we changed the panel out to be whichever one needed to be whichever one, right? It was a lot of work. But you get really good at storefront when you're doing that kind of thing. So essentially we had all these storefront grids, right, that were sitting in front of the building, and we applied panels to them. So they look like blank storefront lines, essentially. But it actually worked better than anything else we had tried. So, okay. So adding grids, I'm going to close this out. Adding grids, we're going to come up here to curtain grid. And you can see that you somewhat get a dimension, right? There's an equal dimension, equal, equal, right? Why did it not generate a mullion there? Who knows? Who knows, right? I know. It's a great tool, and it really does function fairly well, but you just have to get the hang of it, essentially, right? I tab, nope, can't get that one. Oh, there it is. It looks like I got it, right? And I think I can maybe move it around a little bit, perhaps, just a tiny bit. Anyway, so I can add curtain grids. If I want to add a mullion to a curtain grid that didn't generate a mullion, I click on mullions, I hover over it, click, and I can add a mullion. I can also, right, continue to add, nope, it's not letting me do it now. If you're lucky, again, you can get a horizontal one there some days, right? If the moon is full. But essentially, I think the main thing you want to know, we have a panel, we have a mullion, we have a curtain grid, right? We have the entire system. The system is a wall. The wall is embedded into another wall, right? We control the height and the base constraint just like a wall, okay? We can select the panel and change it in and out to create doors and different spandrel type panels if we want to, or it can be translucent like it is now, okay? But this is going to be what you're going to use for the wireless switch, okay? So the wireless switch is going to have this type of glazing. You're going to use it, and I think it'll give you some good practice. Okay. Any questions about storefront? Is that enough for tonight? Yeah? Okay. Here, so what we'll do when we get back, I want to go over stairs a little bit more. I want to go over railings a little bit more, and I want to draw a little bit of the wireless switch and get you going on it. So try and get going on it, see how far you can get, but we will be doing some drawing on it in class as well. So, yep. Okay. Stop recording.